Hello, I'm Dr. Paul Dyer. Welcome to Bridges Live, and I'd like to thank all my listeners and response and things you guys send me through my email, and I really enjoy it. And I really enjoy a lot of the questions. As you know, every time I do Bridges Live, I like to have a interview or a friend come on and talk about the things that life doesn't often get talked about. And today, Dee, I want you to introduce yourself, but before that, I want to thank all my sponsors. And, of course, if you ever want to sponsor, if you ever want to have an idea of a podcast you want me to talk about on Bridges Live, you can always contact me on drpaulholisticscience.com. But, Dee, welcome to Bridges Live, and thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I was excited that you asked me to be on.
So, introduce yourself to the Bridges Live community, and then we'll go from there, because I like I said many times in many podcasts, introduction sucks for me. Because it sounds like I'm always introducing someone to a baseball game, like in the batter up is. So
well, that's fine. Well, my name is Demetria. I go by Dee. I'm from here. Well, not here. I'm living currently like right outside of D.C., but I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, born and raised. Currently, I'm doing a lot of things. I'm in the middle of a career transition. My passion and stuff lies in like wine and spirits and things like that. I have a podcast that I co-host with a friend that lives in LA, and we talk about, it's called Bad and Boozy Podcast. We talk about wine and spirits and stuff, but kind of just from the perspective of Black women and women, because, you know, we kind of got interested but didn't see ourselves reflected in that world, like beer and wine and things like that. Aside from that, I do I volunteer for the Marian House, which is an organization that helps like homeless women and things like that in Baltimore. I've been doing that for about 7 years since my mom passed away, and my biggest thing is helping them raise funds for their annual fundraiser. That's in September, so that's like my the biggest side of my like charitable things. And I'm actually on their 5K planning committee from this year, so I'm looking forward to marketing and doing that. And by trade, I'm an accountant. Right now, I work for the IRS doing audits and things like that, but I went to school, like literally from high school in Baltimore up through grad school. I've been doing accounting. So it's kind of, I'm in an interesting part of my life right now where, so, you know, like accounting was like the passion that I had, but I'm trying to like transition the same skills, and transition into like, more beer and wine, you know, like use my things skills and transition to different.
You know,
that's where I am right now.
And most of the people don't know a little bit of sneaky stuff that Dr. Paul does, is that I'm a licensed bartender. I'm a mixologist.
Are you really?
Yeah.
So that's one of my, I literally was working, like, and I use a Pinterest, like, vision board. So, like, if I'm thinking of stuff, whatever, and I added mixologist to my, like, to my vision, my 2020 vision board. So I was like, so one of my goals is to be a bartender, is to, go to bartender school.
Yeah, so me and my daughter, we took the class together, and we did the master's course of mixology. And so I look at, and I don't bake.
It's cool. I can use it as a resource.
I don't bake and I don't cook, but something about mixing spirits is just like cooking, because you're adding flavors, you're creating these things that's just amazing. And then I also know, I know enough about wine to be as ignorant as possible. So, like, when I was living in Germany, I rented above the barn house of a twin older brothers, these German men, and he was a vineyard, and he did wine. His brother was a beer master. So we would just talk about cutting vines and how to pick grapes and what to do. And so I learned a lot, but like I said, I learned enough just to know enough that I don't know a lot.
Yeah, but that's the part that I like about it, whether it's beer, wine, the spirits or whatever. I mean, I do drink, but I'm like, it's more like the knowledge and then the science behind it.
Yeah.
And the social side. And, you know, because as a consumer, I always catch myself, like, talking to bartenders or doing this or doing that. And with all of my friends, or like with my personality, they like, that could easily be used because I'm like an easy people person or whatever. If I go into a store and you know how they do like the demos and stuff,
right.
I'm always ended up like talking to them or whatever. So I was like, oh, maybe since I've been going to therapy and stuff about the last year, dealing with like some other personal issues, I was just realizing like, oh, you know, like sometimes you don't always think these things are just kind of like a hobby or something that's that's just your like enthusiastic side, and like realistically, like you can do something more like as a career or earn money from it. But it's like, oh, well, it doesn't hurt to bring something in see.
You know, one of the things you mentioned, and I want to touch on a couple of things, and I think this is why I have Dee on today in Bridges Live. Again, thank you for listening to Bridges Live. You can always download the podcast from Apple, iHeart, and iTunes. But here's the thing, Dee. You're a young black woman, right? Not only you're just a young black woman, you're a very smart black woman. So let's keep adding on to this little tree you have. You're smart, you're intelligent, you're beautiful, and you're strong-willed, and yet you find it probably difficult to express yourself. Do you find that to be true?
Well, it depends on what we're talking about. In general, no. I'm like one of my characteristics about that everybody, any of my friends or family will tell you is like they always know where they stand with me. You know, I always know how to, you know, like I'm very vocal and kind of like know what I want or whatever. So I think in certain way, in general, I don't have a problem with expressing myself. I think what I probably learned about myself in the last year was like once I know something I can express it, but then I'm discovering that there were things about myself that I didn't know. So it's like you can't express something that you don't know.
Right.
So I don't have no problem with expressing it, but the only thing that may have been over the last year as I dealt with like some depression and stuff like that, that was a challenge because it was like for the first time in my life I didn't feel like I knew what was happening. But that's why I thought I was a therapist because I'm not a professional.
Right.
So as I was able to just kind of like be guided to like talk about certain things, kind of like dig deeper and like listen to myself or whatever, it was like, oh, it's not that, you know, like once I'm clear, it wasn't that hard to express myself, but it was just like, oh, just trying to find out what myself was even saying.
Well, how, you know, and that's why I brought it up. I think there's a lot of women, strong women, beautiful black women who don't understand that there's still some things they have to unlock about themselves to be full. Do you find that to be true?
Yeah. Yeah, I find it to be true. I'm fortunate that I have seen it over the, maybe like, I'm about to turn 36. So probably like over the last like 6, 7 years, maybe 10 years, I've seen it slowly but surely like grow. But it's like, because there's like one thing about me and other black women like me, it's like, once I know something, I don't keep it to myself, I'm sharing.
Right.
So if I say this or I'm feeling like this, I'm going to let my friends know, I'm going to let other black women know, I'm going to let other people know. And, you know, a lot of times, as you do that, whether they change or do something like that in there, you like planting the seed. And I'm naturally vocal, so I'm like posting on my Facebook, posting on social media, and sometimes I don't even realize that something I said impacted somebody else. And then like I might run into a friend and years later maybe like, oh, I'm glad you talked about, you know, this show was just your mom dying, or even the idea that I don't know what's going on, but I'm trying to figure it out. Like, that's, like, encouraging me because I've never been, like, scared to figure it out. But my therapist is a black woman, and one of the things I love about her is what she said is right. A lot of black women and black people in general, we don't realize how much, like, that colonization and the trauma and stuff we've carried over the generations. So even if something that that didn't like directly happen to you, it's affecting you, something that happened to your mom.
Right.
You know, it's like in our DNA, in our practices. So I might have this gripe with my mom about this, but you know, this might have happened to her, and blah blah blah. You know what I'm saying? So only thing an individual can do is kind of like dig deep and like do your part, and then hopefully like not impart your less trauma on to the next generation, whether it be for my kids, future kids, or me for my niece and nephews or whatever. But that is true. But I think in general, a lot more of us are kind of realizing like we like have these things on tech, and then as we realize it, I'm seeing more Black women like right before I took a leave of absence from work last year for like a whole month off. But it was just like depression. But it's like you kind of like you can be kind of directly molded, whether it's by society or family or whomever, telling you directly or indirectly that like, you know, like that you got to be strong, that you got to be this or whatever. And then, but I realized last year, like, no, strength is me realizing, like, I need a break. Like, I just been going. And then I hadn't worked for another fast myself. If I broke my leg or if I had some physical injury, I would have no problem with taking the time off work. And I was like, well, you know, depression or whatever your mental state is, like, that is, it should be on the same level of importance. And right before I decided to make that decision, I had read an article. Yes, it was like another Black woman was like, why I took 2 months off of work to deal with my mental health, because I didn't realize I didn't really deal with my father's death, and I put myself into work and blah, 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 blah. And it was kind of like, oh, shoot, it's not just me. And then it was like, it gave me kind of like that coach sign, like, go ahead and take off. And then, like, then as I'm talking about my journey, I had other people be like, oh, I decided to look up my policy at work and see what kind of, you know, whatever, negotiate therapist. So I'm just trying to, like, work on myself, but I think with my natural nature is expressive. It helps me also to share with people.
And that's why I do and that's why I do Bridges Live, because to me it's about information, understanding, and action. Information is something you might hear, right? Something you might come across, something you might read, just whatever. But understanding is the connection to thyself. How is it within me that I am connected to what I just learned, heard, or seen, or whatever, right? Or any of the 5 senses. How is that it is connected to me? And then the action is, what is it doing to me? And how can I clear it? How can I heal it? And how can I live with it? And that is the journey. You know, you mentioned
that's the journey in a nutshell.
You mentioned your mother and how she passed and how it affected you. But let's go back there. You being a Baltimore native, and we know Baltimore is a city that just kills blacks. That's it. It burns them up like coal on a fire because of we're not going to get into the history of Baltimore and the Baltimore troubles that's going on even now, but you coming from where you were to what you are now is remarkable, and yet you still had to take that time off and say, who am I?
Right. That's because when you come from a situation like I did, you know, like poverty, drug abuse in the family, you like kind of force you're kind of risking your childhood. So you forced to make like all these, even though you don't even realize that it's happening, you're making all these adult decisions when you're a kid. You can't, all the adults around you are using drugs or selling drugs or doing whatever, but they're not available like they should be. And even if I'm not being physically harmed, I think I had to learn as an adult that I was being neglected. You know, just because I was with my mother all the time don't mean that I was getting what I needed. And so from probably like early, like 10 years old, if you think about like 10 to like 35, make all these adult decisions, that's taxing. But it was like I realized when I found the comfort and stability, it was like I was just going to be the best student. I was just going to do this. I was going to do that. I was going to go to school. I was going to go to college. And I managed, you know, I'm proud of all that. I managed to do all that despite my situation. But where you just kind of, like, you don't really have that wiggle room as a young person to kind of like dig deep and figure out more of who you are. Because it's not like accounting and stuff. Like I didn't enjoy that. Like it wasn't part of me, but it was the part of me. I'm learning that it was the part of me that was stable. It was the part of me that protected me. It was the part of me that kind of keep me on this narrow path. Like just do it this way. Don't if you have a chance to explore, you might, if you go off the path, somewhere in the back of your mind, it's like it's going to all fall apart, whatever. But, if I'm like, go to school, get this job or whatever, it's okay. But as you're getting older, it's natural to kind of like start questioning, wow, like, okay, so I did this, was it really what I wanted to do or whatever. So I had to tell myself that literally the other day, if I'm like considering career change, it was like, oh, I did all that in spite of my upbringing, but let me dig and see like what else was there that I probably just put aside because it was safe or whatever. and it's like, oh my God, it's like a hard work or whatever. But yeah, but it wasn't easy at all. But it was like, all right, let me do this. It's safe. I'm gonna go to school. You realize that school, you go to school, you get praised or whatever for your hard work. So it's like, oh, let me just keep doing this. And keep paying attention to you. Let me keep doing this. Get some kind of fulfillment somewhere.
Just recently, one of my daughter's friend committed suicide this past week, and then it always reflects on things when anyone commits suicide or a death happens. It brings me back to there are things that are tapped into our bodies that we are not responding to, not because we don't want to, but we've been never taught how to listen to ourselves, meaning that inner voice, that inner speak. And you have people like Anthony Bourdain, people thought he was living the life of everything, and the food and the wine and the spirits made me think of that. And yet he was in such turmoil. And many,
I can relate to that because my mother actually committed suicide.
Okay.
So that's like an extra, a layer up than just stuff.
And then I think when parents, go through what they've gone through in the passing, do you think it was genetics that would play a part on who you are, that it came from your parents, or were you concerned about that at all?
Yeah, I used to, my parents, both my parents were drug addicts. There's a lot of like alcoholism and stuff in my family. So I used to be like, and early on being a woman, I was concerned that like, I'm doing the math. My mother gave birth to me when she was this age. My grandma gave birth to her, and everybody was around like 19 or 20. And my first thing in mind outside of drugs was just, don't have no babies. It was just like my plan was like go to college, have the babies at the house, like just get it. Like probably I remember being a little nervous around like 19, even though I was doing that to protect myself. It was just like, ooh. But then it was just like, as a teenager, college student, you naturally like want to. A lot of people naturally like maybe drink or hang out or whatever. But I was always very cautious because in my brain I was like, if I do this, am I going to like, if I drink too much, am I going to like just all of a sudden be alcoholic? Like how much of that addictive personality I may have or may not have or whatever. And so it was always kind of like in the back of my mind. I think I had enough. I don't think it like overtook, like worried me like too much. But I was always kind of like cautious. Like I'm just not going to I feel like I had a good balance. My college roommate always jokes me now about how many parties, like I went to parties and whatever, but how many times I was just be reminded like, oh no, I've got to finish college, I got to do this. So like, I got homework to do, I can't hang out with y'all this time. So I was able to strike some kind of balance, but it was always like in the back of my mind, like, it's like, I got to do everything to be like this far opposite of what I came from as possible. I don't want you to run over this part. When you knew that you were mentally focused on a certain balance of what you needed to do, right? Yeah.
Not from what you wanted to do. And now that you're in the age and you are going through a journey, and reflection, you're now processing what you want to do, and that...
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. I told my therapist last week that I feel like now I'm being like that rebellious teenager, and not even rebellious, so that kind of makes it seem like I'm trying. It's like, you know, like you might take a break from between college and high school, even in college, you might try these other things. I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't get a chance to do that. Like I probably would have did this if I felt like I had the room. But I'm the oldest. It was like I gotta go to college, I gotta go back home and do my best to like support my brothers or like at least show them another way. But I never got a chance to just do what I wanted to.
You know, you also, you know, and this is a black woman's problem. Not a problem. It's almost like a curse, blessing and a curse.
It's a conditioning. I call it a conditioning.
Well, because you also took upon yourself as being the woman to take care of others.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why even this late I don't like have children, because I always told people like I was parenting my own parents.
Right.
I was parenting before she passed away, and my little brother and my younger brothers or whatever, and that was like early on. I can remember like even, you know, when I was in high school, like I'm going to work this job. And my mother doesn't have money, so I'm going to save my money. And then I'm going to get a phone bill, but I'm going to, like, take my little brother's shoes are worn down, so let me take him to get a new pair of shoes or whatever. And I'm 16. I should be able to just, like, work a part-time job and just because I want to, not because I feel like I have to or whatever.
You know,
so, yeah, it was just like early on, but in my therapist kind of like as I talk about that child in me, it was almost like I already had that insight, even from maybe like elementary school, to like realize I wasn't getting like a certain thing, even from my mom at home, because you know when she goes through whatever her turmoil and drugs or whatever, she will always forgive me what she had. So even to this day, I'm really close to like women, all of them, like most of them black women, like my guidance counselor from high school.
Right.
That was my guidance counselor from ninth grade. I can call her right now and just be like, hey, how you doing? Or whatever. I'm in Baltimore. I'm a top 5. And that was from ninth grade. But I always joke like, oh, I just collect moms. And my therapist was like, no, go a little deeper. You had the like the wherewithal inside to seek outside what you wasn't getting at home. And I was like, oh, okay. So it was just like, it's interesting, kind of like putting the pieces together from a different lens and kind of digging back and seeing, looking at it from my, like, what my child self saw versus trying to make sense of it from a grown-up perspective.
So, you know, before we finish this, Dee, I want to say thank you again for coming on with Bridges Live. I want you to think about what is something, because you said, you know, being vocal now that you're going through your journey, how relay something to the black woman that they may not hear, or maybe they just need to hear it again?
I would just say, like, I think my biggest thing is, like, it's okay to fail. I think that's one of the biggest things. I would probably say it's okay to fail. And a lot of times what you think is that failure, it's not really real. It's not really a failure. It's like a lot of times we give ourselves these unrealistic expectations that if I don't do this, I'm this. It's not an indictment on your personality. Like, if you give yourself something to accomplish, whether it's, no matter how small it is, a chore you were supposed to do, or a bigger goal, if you fail or if it doesn't get done, it's like, okay, it's okay. Like, did you learn from it? On to the next thing. I think that's my biggest thing, because I will always say in my 20s, if you ask me what was my fear, and I will always say, like, fear of failure, fear of uncertainty. But, like, that's right. Like, so the only thing that's going to happen is, like, what's the worst thing that happens? Most times it's never as bad as what we think it's going to be. So I have to, like, don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid of uncertainty.
Oh, Dee, thank you so much for coming on with me on Bridges Live. And one of the things about testimonials or having conversations, right? It's that when people hear this or read this or however they come across it, that they could say, that's me, or I know someone also. Because, and that's where understanding is. Now, when the action comes is, what can we do now? Let's move forward. Let's move in. Let's do internal work. Let's do external work. And I like to say thank you for doing all those things, because that only makes us as a unity of people stronger.
Yep. No problem.
Thank you, Dee. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Bridges Live, and I'm Dr. Paul. You can always contact me on drpaulholisticscience.com, or you can always email me for any types of shows that you want, or Dr. Paul W Dyer at gmail.com. I'd like to thank all my listeners and sponsors, and again, I will see you next Bridges Live.